David Grush is a former U.S. Air Force officer, an intelligence official, whistleblower, and special advisor to Missouri Republican Representative Eric Burleson, who has helped lead the push for disclosure. He joins us tonight. Welcome back to Special Report, David. I want to get your
Thanks, Brett.
sense of this release today, what you make of it, what you think is coming. What's next?
Yes, Brett, we should acknowledge this first tranche is certainly historically significant. The president is following through on his promises. Some of the information in this tranche certainly will be historically significant. Some will be attributed as prosaic natural phenomenon, and upon further analysis, I believe further documents will reveal a lot of the other information that I got access to in terms of foreign intelligence on adversarial UAP programs and certain U.S. operations. However, that security declassification review is quite complex, and I would expect some delays. But I certainly fully support Trump's White House team on this declassification, and we should definitely applaud the president for following through. But do know that there's going to be some agency obfuscation.
That you said adversarial UAP programs, that's talking about other countries that may have recovered craft that are trying to kind of re-engineer it for their own purposes. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, sir. And there was also programs to detect and track UAP, very much akin to the UAP task force and other kind of outside the onion efforts over the years.
Okay, this is, we had you on obviously in November. We did a series of reports, and thanks for coming on back then. This is what you said then about the president.
Certainly the current president is very knowledgeable on this subject, and I really believe if Trump wants to be the greatest president and the most consequential leader likely in world history, he certainly has the knowledge, the capabilities, and understanding of some of these sensitive government transparency issues.
So you think, one, he knows, and two, he's open to transparency on UAPs?
He certainly is very well informed on this issue. Leave it at that.
Yeah, so you think he's opening up this door and knows a lot more?
Oh, yes, sir. And I actually went into that in detail recently. I did an interview with Chris Farrell on Judicial Watch, and certainly President was briefed late in his first term before COVID by a particular agency, and was briefed on many of these issues, to include the crash retrieval issue. However, like I pointed out on Judicial Watch, certainly I don't think he's gotten all the information, and because of that agency's reputation, he certainly probably doesn't believe quite everything that he's been told, and I'm sure he's tasked his team in the White House to verify a lot of the other aspects that he was briefed on his first term.
You know, there's a lot of people out today saying this doesn't, advance the ball that much. I want to see the real stuff. There are a lot of documents out in this file, and one of them, just digging in here, Daily Mail first found it, but it's in the documents released by the Department of War. It's from the 1960s. It's an FBI report which says a few witnesses have reported seeing crewmen landed from these objects who are described as 3.5 to 4 feet tall, wearing what appear to be spacesuits and helmets. I mean, that's the first reference in this tranche to actual creatures, aliens, extraterrestrial. Do you know that to be true?
That is true, and certainly the U.S. government has recovered those biological materials, something I've testified to. And because of that, a lot of other cabinet agencies, to include, believe it or not, HHS, under RFK's leadership, will actually have to deal with some of the document triage that has resulted from some of these programs.
So what you're saying is we are on the cusp of getting a lot more details that deal with actual alien beings, however you're going to describe them.
That's certainly up to the president's team, and I certainly support them, but it has come to my attention actually recently, as of today, there are some actors within certain intelligence agencies, to include DIA and CIA specifically, that are actually blocking some of the president's presidentially appointed team and getting access and getting control on some of these historical records. So I really expect the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, Bradley Hansel, to take care of that, as some of that's under his cognizance, especially on the national program side, which is directly under his organization, to reveal some of the historical National Security Council records on this.
Obviously, there's a lot of skepticism out there. There's a lot of people saying, I'm not sure, but we're going to see. This disclosure is important. We've covered it from the beginning. David, we appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Tim Burchett is with us with more. I got to first give you credit. You've been fighting for this information to be made public for a long time. Thank you for the fight that you're in. I think it runs a lot deeper. The most compelling information I saw was from our own astronauts on top of the videos. But you know a lot more than that, don't you?
I do, and I do want to personally thank President Trump for keeping his word to me personally. We had a long conversation, and I brought that up to him, and he said he was going to get it out there, and dadgummit, he kept his word. And, you know, but I want to warn people, though, this early stuff that we're seeing is not all of it, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. But Trump's having to fight, you know, he's having to fight the deep state, and it's just... And the next files will be tougher to get, but I suspect he'll get them because he is Trump. He knows how to work this thing. And until that day comes, though, there's still going to be more and more, and there's going to be more questions.
Okay. When you watch the S4, the Bob Lazar story, which I know you're very familiar with.
Sure.
He's saying we have aircraft. Do we?
I think we do, but I don't think they're quite in our hands. I think what they've done is handed out to some of our defense contractors or some private entities, because that way they're not FOIA-able, Freedom of Information Act. Say we handed something off to Ford Motor Company. We haven't, I don't think. But if we had, me as a congressman could not FOIA that from Ford, but I could if it was the FBI, if we really trusted them to give us the right information, which I don't always. But I think that's what they've done with it. And they've compartmentalized this stuff so much, Sean, that it's very difficult. You'll have somebody within one department tell you that it does not exist. We don't, you know, a little guy with the man bun in the Biden administration telling me we don't have data points on this. And then, you know, the next week I'm getting briefed by somebody in the same alphabet agency that's telling me that in fact they do exist. And here's the footage of what we're seeing, and we don't know what they are.
Well,
and why in the world would these pilots go ahead? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, the astronauts aren't going to lie. I know you were in the age of disclosure. Marco Rubio's comments in that film, and wow. I mean, it makes it seem like a certainty that people that know, like yourself and Marco Rubio, that you guys know, that government officials already know. So hopefully this is the beginning of many disclosures. I mean, I'm sure you've watched the age of disclosure.
Yeah, I'm in it a little bit.
You're in
yeah,
it.
I saw it. Yeah, and thank God for people like Lou Elizondo and so many other real patriots, because, you know, Lou was sort of like Bob Lazar. You know, oh, he didn't. They came out and said, oh, he didn't do that. Then they tried to discredit him. And, you know, Lazar, they even said he didn't work for him, and he produced a dadgum check stub to show that he did work for him. And so, you know, it's the same program. There's arrogance, there's power, there's control. They think they know what we can handle, and it's not their business to know that. And President Trump hit that nail right on the dadgum head.
We really appreciate your hard work, and I think the American people can handle whatever it is, and I think there is a lot more.
I believe most of what we got today is just noise, because it's what we already knew and heard. It's just being called something new. Maximum transparency. So let's bring in two men whom I turn to in the fight for transparency when it comes to what the government knows about UFOs. Pentagon UFO whistleblower Mr. Lou Elizondo, and News Nation investigative journalist Ross Coulthart. And I am fine for you guys to say, no, Chris, you're wrong. This is great. I'm too cynical about it. I want too much. I'm fine with that. I respect your opinion more than my own. Ross, I start with you. You know, what you did with Grush, that moved the needle. It created energy that either you want to ruin this guy Grush's reputation and his sterling pedigree and say that he's psycho, or you guys aren't telling us things, and you really moved the needle with him, Ross. I feel like it wasn't paid off today, though.
I completely agree with you, Chris. I must confess I was underwhelmed by today's supposed maximum transparency. I don't think it is maximum transparency. I'm talking to people inside the UAP alien craft retrieval and reverse engineering program who are deeply frustrated that the Pentagon is in charge of this release. They don't think that's appropriate. They also think that the Congress is having the wool pulled over its eyes and it's far too compliant with the national security state dictating what can and can't be released. I do think what's positive and what's optimistic is that there is, I'm assured from within the administration, a determination to be transparent as much as possible. And I'm told that in coming weeks we are going to see more. But frankly, today's was a bit underwhelming. We still, for example, haven't seen any of the 46 videos that Representative Anna Paulina Luna with the UAP caucus is demanding be provided to Congress.
So, Lou, what's your read on this? What is the psychology of this disclosure? What do you think this means about what their intentions are?
Well, Chris, I tend to be slightly more optimistic. I look at this from the perspective of history. Historically speaking, there's been other presidents in the past that say they are going to go ahead and be transparent with this topic, and they haven't been able to. So whether they didn't want to or they didn't succeed, this president, whether you like him or not, is starting to fulfill that promise. Now, with that said, I think it is rather underwhelming for a lot of folks who've seen, like myself, who've seen the videos, the high definition, ultra, 8K high definition videos that do exist. Obviously, the grainy black and white can be a bit underwhelming, but I will tell you, though, I think it's a bit, you're asking me, why is the administration being kind of like a little bit slow with this? And I think it's a bit of a test balloon. I think they're dipping the toe in the water to see the reaction before they decide to take the high dive and cannonball into the deep end, which I'm told is going to actually happen. There's already been members of Congress whom I trust who've been told by administration officials that day is going to come. And also, we talk about the moon picture, which you pointed out. I think you're absolutely correct. When you look at that from the Apollo 12 mission, that was in the late 60s, early 70s, and we did not have satellites at the time orbiting the moon. And if you look at that statement, it said specifically, NASA said, hey, look, these might be real objects, right? These might be real objects. So we didn't have AI back then. We didn't have deep fakes back then. These are real photos taken from the surface of the moon. After NASA had spent decades saying nothing to see here, folks, oh, you know what? Turns out there's actually quite a bit to see, and our astronauts are seeing it. So I do think it was telling. No, it's not the grand reveal that I hope would happen immediately, but I think it's going to take a little time. I think this is an excellent step in excellent first step in the right direction, and I am cautiously optimistic that, keep in mind, tens of millions of documents, right, Chris? Tens of millions. Mm-hmm. A lot of these are hard copy. That's a lot of time to go through.
Dr. Michio Kaku is a theoretical physicist. Doctor, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you about this UFO release?
I would put it at a 10 because we're at a turning point. For decades, we had to rely upon eyewitness accounts of housewives, truck drivers. People would snicker and laugh at them. Now we're talking about huge files that are top secret that for the first time in modern history are being given to the American public. So I'd like to congratulate President Trump for having the nerve to go against recommendations by the FBI and the CIA to release these files so that independent researchers, scientists can go over them and we can make up our own minds rather than having the CIA make up our minds.
And the CIA apparently is still fighting the full release. When you hear or see about a UFO that goes like that, up, down, left, right, at 90-degree angles so fast you can't even believe it, what does that tell you?
It tells me that the laws of centrifugal force should crush the bones of the people inside the flying saucer. So either there's basically an automated flying saucer, so there are no bones to crack as the thing goes zigzagging left and right, or it represents a very high level of intelligence to create something like that. So in other words, we humans cannot get into a spaceship that goes zigzagging like that. Only aliens can. but even their bones would break. So it must be a very high level of automated computer technology.
Missouri Republican Congressman Eric Burleson joins me now. Congressman, thanks for being with us here today. You and I, Congressman, I think we've had a very candid conversation together. We have both talked about the fact that I am open and curious about this subject of UAPs. But I do feel like we're at a place where evidence needs to start meeting expectations. What we've seen today, what does this tell us? Does this meet any expectation?
Look, I think that we have to take a step back and recognize the historic nature of this. Every president prior to President Trump has really demurred any kind of questions on this. They've dismissed them. They would not talk about it. People would, if anything, snicker or sneer anytime this kind of subject came up. So the fact that we have a president who is open and willing and trying to be transparent is something to celebrate. That being said, I think that this is a teaser. This is a kind of a, something to open up with. This was the low-hanging fruit kind of videos and content for this administration to release.
Okay.
A lot of this some of this has been out there before. It's not been acknowledged, right?
Okay.
So you're looking at the Apollo 17 video. Yeah.
I've seen the same thing said by Congressman Tim Burchett, that this is sort of the beginning, and there will be other releases that could leave Americans with a holy crap moment. I believe that's a direct quote from Congressman Tim Burchett. My question for you, or the congressman, would be why? Why slow roll this out like it's a season of Game of Thrones? Like, why would episode 1 be somewhat uninspiring, leave us with more questions than answered, if there's something coming after the teaser? What's the point in staging the release?
So again, this, just from talking with the White House and this administration, this is not an easy thing to do. There's not one huge repository of all of these documents and videos and photos. Despite what most people believe, they're really, at least we haven't found that one, big repository. So what the agency is doing is going and finding, first and foremost, the items that are readily available to be released, and they want to move quickly and release those. I would ask you, would you prefer to have them wait for, years, what would probably take years if they were to do a comprehensive study and then release it all at once in one big batch? I would prefer that they release it as they find it. And I think that this administration wants to be transparent and do that.
Now, my criticism is not for the decisions of the administration. My criticism is for the expectation built by many out there that have these conversations that there will soon be a bomb to drop when it comes to revelations about aliens. And if that's true, are we trying to prepare the American people with a slow drip, drip, drip tease of this stuff? If not, then, Congressman, I would say, if this is all we've got, then I'm not sure that there's anything the American government really has that tells us anything about the existence of aliens. I'm just beginning to feel like this entire story is teased out always just beyond our reach.
I can sense your frustration. I've experienced it personally myself. I've seen videos that I think are in the process of being declassified, so I think that there is more to come. If they're not going to be disclassified, I'll probably do an effort to release them myself under speech and debate. But again, a lot of the footage that I've seen is similar to what has been released today. There's some that are pretty interesting, and especially given the environment and the circumstances of the videos, whether they are videos of UAPs that are flying around Russian submarines, or a video of our aircraft that are firing on some of these UAPs. I've seen those kind of videos, and so I'm teasing that because I know that I'm telling the administration through you at this moment that if they don't release those, then I have the capabilities of getting those videos and releasing them.
Can I ask you one more thing about this, Congressman? I expect you and I will have much longer conversations like we have in the past, where we have fewer time constraints. But what I'm seeing here, and we're sharing today, and what's been released, there are probably hundreds, perhaps thousands of explanations for what we see on these video screens. They don't lead us directly to extraterrestrial or out-of-this-world explanations. Is there something else? Is there some other proof that you've seen? Is there a more compelling video that can't be described or explained as a drone or a light refraction or any other thing? Again, I'm not cynically dismissing these things. As I've always mentioned to you, I'm open and curious. I just don't think the evidence is meeting the moment.
I think you and I are at the exact same place. I continue to look for these things and try to follow the narrative that people are saying, follow the historical narrative that we have a crash retrieval program. And this is the kind of information that I keep getting presented. It doesn't mean that we don't stop looking. And so the
Fair.
White House and the ODNI is looking for the next places to go investigate. And I think that, and they've actually been open and asking me where those next places should be. And so we're going to be working to offer those locations. A lot of this is going to be in the hands of these agencies that are quasi-private or private companies. And that's going to be a harder dig for this administration to do, but that's where I think we're going to get to the truth.
To his defense, the president hasn't made big promises about what this would reveal. I don't think I can say that about everyone who purports to have seen something, that there are big revelations. And so far, the evidence in the videos haven't met the promises. I do hope we continue to see more, Congressman. I hope you do fight so that we can see more. Obviously, transparency and answers is what we're seeking here on what would be a gigantic issue. Congressman Burleson, thanks as always for your time.
What did you think, though, Ryan? I'm curious, since you're a fighter pilot of this, with the 8 points there, but it looks like there is like a trail behind it. Any idea what it could be?
It's tough. The video that you're referencing, the first thing I see when I look at that, we have to remember that we're looking at the infrared energy that's coming from the device, not necessarily the physical shape of it. And so, what does that heat signature tell us? What does that field coming off the back tell us about the propulsion systems or how it's maneuvering? I don't have these answers. I don't know. I haven't seen anything that looks like that. I will say, with the reports that we've had at Americans for Safe Aerospace, other witnesses have described the same thing and have already reached out to me since the drop to remind me that they had the same experiences. So although these are onesie-twosie videos that the government has decided to release, this is something average people are seeing as well, not just sensor operators.
Today, the administration confirmed that this is just the beginning and that new material will be released every few weeks as it's declassified. Tony?